So, poverty, world poverty, how do we fix it? Well, uh, there was this post, supposedly, uh, what's his name now? I can't even remember his name now. Not Steve Jobs, the other guy. Steve Jobs is dead. Bill Gates. Bill Gates. Microsoft. He's giving $7 billion to Africa to fight world. Well, for the article presented it as he was going to do population control. In other words, that would probably mean more access to birth control, encouraging people to use it, and also abortions. And then some people were saying, oh, no, it's not going to be used for that at all. It's going to be used for this. But so just the general theme of how do you help, underdeveloped countries with its poor, poverty, and not enough food and stuff like that. And there have been people who have gone into countries with modern agriculture and basically ruin people's farms. In other words, what works for us in America, we got plenty of money, we get really good soil here, and we can afford fertilizer. So if we decide we're growing extremely high yield wheat, there's no problem. It doesn't deplete the soil because we put that stuff back into it. Now, it does a little, but what I'm saying is basically you're going to continually farm this plot and you're going to get a really big harvest from it. Well, you take that wheat and you put it in some other country that can't afford fertilizer really, and all of a sudden you have a disaster. You might have 1 or 2 good years of crops, and then all of a sudden the soil is depleted and the crop yield just keeps going down and down till it's not worth planting anymore. So varieties, encouraging other, like third world countries or whatever, to use modern varieties can sometimes be a terrible mistake. This happened to the Andes in some regions too. We have these big potatoes, and you can have a potato that is enormous, okay? There are potatoes that are smaller and everything, but we like the big, like the russet potatoes and things like that, and we see them as superior. Well, the people in the Andes Mountains, the indigenous people there, are like, oh yeah, let's grow that potato, and then we can sell it, when we want big potatoes too. And they grow them, deplete the soil, and then they need fertilizer that they can't afford a lot of times. Whereas before, they were growing 300 plus varieties of these very small potatoes. So the when you have farming that's been done, over hundreds of years, they tend to end up farming what is sustainable. In other words, they can't keep going on this plot of land if they're depleting it. There has to be a system where that's renewed naturally somehow. And so that can be a disaster, another case. Now, another, this is not a disaster, but this Jesuit priest in 1983, and I'll put his name here because I can't pronounce it, and he's in Madagascar, and he starts SRI, which is a system of rice intensification, okay? With this process, just briefly trying to explain how it works, that first you separate your seeds. You buy seeds, put them in water, and there are ones that float and the ones that sink. So by doing that, you can tell what the good seeds are or not. So you're throwing away some seeds. So it would be counterintuitive to believe that you're going to get a higher yield when you've thrown away seed, but that's what's going to happen. You take them, you plant them further apart, and again, no, we need more plants per acre. That's how we get a greater yield. Well, no. So anyway, that's briefly some of the things. There's other things involved with it too, but basically, it provides a way for people to get quite a large gain in rice production. I believe they were, it was like 30 to 70%. Some of the literature I was reading on it, and it seems to work in those areas too. It doesn't deplete the soil. So sometimes we can come up with something that can be helpful to people. But at one time, when people were hungry, there'd be a ship that would go down to a port, and hey, we got free food for everyone. And, people leave their homes, walk a day to get this food. They stay there and eat it until it's gone. Obviously, it's usually we're not sending supply thing after supply thing after supply thing, but then the food runs out. They walk back to their farms. Their farm's dead. No one's been taking care of the animals. The crops are bad, and they end up in a worse position than they were before the food arrived. Now, they had a nice time for a little while there was food from the ship, and that's basically corrected to some extent by delivering the food to areas rather than say, come and get it. Now, the problem always with infusing money into a country, giving food and everything is politics. The political systems in some countries are terribly corrupt. And people like to think, oh, America's corrupt, and it's like, yeah, but we're not corrupt to the extent that some of these other countries are. I mean, you give a huge amount of money, and most of it goes to the politicians. They keep it, and they don't distribute it. That's happened so many times. It's unbelievable, and continues to happen. That's like if you want to help a country like Haiti, giving the money to the government, who Haiti is considered the most corrupt nation in the world, would be a mistake. It's not going to get to the people who need it. And so what you would do then is that if you can't find an individual to give it to, some, passing it out, you would go through some good NGO, it's called, non-governmental organization. We call them nonprofits. Like in the tropics, they have Food for the Poor. Food for the Poor, out of every dollar, 95 cents actually gets to the people who need it. Some charities you got to look at, and, they might eat up 40, 50, 60% of that dollar. So the people are getting practically nothing. But see, people are getting good salaries. So, but you can get the profit statement and the kind of the distribution, that number, from any charity. And if the charity won't provide it, don't give it to the charity. And there are some sites you can go on that rank charities, so you can look at them, and you'd find something like Food for the Poor at the top in those 95% areas. Those are the really good charities. And you can, and then you can find out, look at that and say, oh yeah, I know if I give money to this, I'm really helping people, rather than, wait a second, how many salaries am I providing for people that already have money, that don't, some of the charities that do a lot of fundraising, a lot of the money you give goes back to distributing more, solicitations, more mail, more, commercials, whatever. So you got to be careful about that. But I just thought I'd throw that out because it was a discussion about Bill Gates, and someone mentioned some agriculture thing he did that failed in a country, and I don't know. It's hard because you have to somehow get out around the political issue, which is frankly impossible in some countries. What was it, Myanmar? That they had this, I forget what it was, some horrible event happened to that country. So, Catholic Charities in the U.S. and all these people were saying, wait a second, well, hey, we'll give you food. And they were like, no, we don't need outside help. Keep your stuff to yourself. And that's what had to happen. I mean, we didn't fly, bomber planes over there and drop food, which we have done in countries that would allow us to do it. Uh, so I don't know. That's people have their pride, I guess, but people want to control things. Maybe they're controlling the population through food. They want the people poor. Who knows what it is? But sometimes politically, it's just not going to work. But then we have the aspect of what you would call appropriate technology. In other words, growing high yield rate wheat is kind of a high technology thing. You don't think it is, but you put it in the situation and you find out they can't afford the fertilizer, so it turns up being a failure pretty quick. So you've got to have a technology that works. A lot of times when you think of that, you're thinking of devices like solar cookers and things like that. But agriculture can be like that too. And, you've got to try things out, maybe do pilot studies, but it takes some amount of brain work too to look and say, I have this great idea, but it isn't great there. I think sometimes people don't see that, and they're like, no, if you do things the way we do it, you'll be okay. Or if you do, I'm telling you what to do. If you do it this way, you're going to be fine. Well, sometimes they're wrong. A lot of times they're wrong. So I don't know. If you're interested in helping, world hunger or whatever, people in tropics, Africa, and all these things, look at providing some kind of appropriate technology. Find a charity that has that 95% or higher rating. That means only 5% goes to the administration, and that includes soliciting more contributions. But we can do a lot if we really try it. And in some places we can't because it just won't let us. But, that doesn't mean we can't. There are plenty of people we can help that are waiting for help. So there's my 2 cents worth. Oh, I'm going to say it's 4 cents worth. Bye.